267. The world of shinobi is a special place, having such power. Now she was just a tramp on the side roads. She didn't want to believe that a monster like Uchiha Yu really existed. But even Atsutsuki Ishiki is still alive, and moreover, he does not seek to destroy the world of Shinami, but rather revived it. In addition, she felt something huge and terrible in the universe. The chakra waves were so powerful that they surpassed her imagination. It was as if she saw the sun itself. All the greatest beings in the universe are afraid of Uchiha Yu. Then what right does she have to doubt? As he thinks that Uchiha Yu is just a fiction, everyone fell silent. What a useless progenitor of the chakra. They really revived worthlessness. In the end, everyone dispersed, everyone found a job. As for Atsutsuki and Shiki, although his true identity had already been revealed, no one said anything. He was still the chairman of the Uncouncil. After all, no matter how many things he had done before, his merits were obvious, and his contribution to the common cause was much greater than that of most. If not for the attention to Ishiki's intervention and his rigid centralization at the very beginning, the shinobi world would never have achieved its historical unity. Without him, everything would have crumbled to dust long ago, and they would have been together with this world. If not for Ishiki's insistence that resources be directed to the exploration of parallel worlds, without taking into account considerations for the construction of spaceships, they probably would have died out long ago. At a time when everything was collapsing, the Shinbi world needed a strong leader, a respected person who did not adhere to any principles to any clan, did not thirst for power or wealth, thinking only about salvation. Ishiki turned out to be just such a person. It is possible, if Atsutsuki Shiki refused to continue his business, Senju Tabirama would be the first to say to object. After all, if it wasn't for Saika's support, he himself would have begun to doubt that there were more than two parallel worlds at all. Yes, even he himself has already begun to lose self-confidence, meanwhile dissatisfaction. The pressure only increased. More and more people believe that searching for parallel worlds is a waste of time and resources. Without Ishiki, there would be no chance of continuation in the project. What do you remember about Senju Hashirama? Better not, Kagaya, learn this technique. After that, I'll send you to the academy. With your strength, you are already participating in some experiments. Now I'm going to revive your other versions. Hey, you black Zetsu, call the other Zetsu, let them gather when everyone has dispersed. And Tsutsuki Ishiki gave Kagaya several ninja techniques, special techniques that accelerate the assimilation of knowledge. Under their influence, memory became perfect, consciousness began to work faster. And a special illusory world appeared in consciousness, where time flows differently. There it became possible to quickly process information, understand knowledge, and link them together. With each new cycle of rebirth, the accumulated knowledge of the shinobi world became deeper and more extensive. Without these accelerated learning methods, development would simply have stalled, because each new cycle was like starting everything from scratch. In fact, Ishiki initially wanted to use Kagaya as an experimental sample, and soon all versions of Kagaya from parallel worlds were revived. Each of them painfully accepted this bitter fact. They are just bad copies, abandoned on the side of life. Whether they wanted to or not, they had to participate in production and research and benefit from Ishiki's orders. If someone refused, Ishiki was only too happy, he was immediately sent to the laboratory as a test subject. And so, a new world was found. This world was discovered not with the help of a dragon vein, but with the help of a superdimensional shuttle. Now we need to confirm whether Uchiha Yu will be able to detect us after passing through this device. At that moment in the universe unfolded, a giant mechanical object forming huge rings of a time portal. The structure was designed in such a way that traces of movement in spacetime remained minimal. There's no need to check, a calm voice rang out. I have already observed this. The spatiotemporal trace is barely discernible to you, but it's too clear for me. Such a trace will not escape from Uchiha Yu in any way. It is better to create a technology for blocking spacetime. It was about Baburam Tamayuk. His words disappointed everyone. If the newly created device really managed to hide them from Uchiha Yu, then in the current state, the shinobi world could breathe freely. There would be a place for a bird in the sky, freedom for fish in the sea. Then they would begin to develop freely until they reached the strength sufficient to challenge Chiyu himself, Chihizumi's daughter. And wondered if Aburami Tamayuki would rise up against them if they finally managed to get rid of Uchiyu. But I came to the conclusion no. Tamayuki had the ability to temporarily roll back, could continue to exist, and return to the past at any danger. There was another, more convincing argument. As long as Uchiha Yu was alive, and Tamayuki Barami couldn't keep calm, after all, Yu is not a dead creature. He is alive, he himself is looking for danger in other parallel worlds. Even if you get rid of it, what good will it do? After a while, he will still find them. Any internal turmoil, any ferment will be tantamount to suicide as soon as unity can give them a chance of survival. Enough internal strife to stop the development of technology, and one day they had to face Uchiha Yu, who absorbed unknown streams of energy and turned into a monstrous transcendent force. And here's a new arrival. Naruto Uzumaki was afflicted, as he is the captain, to take revenge on Kanohi. But over the years, Konoha became stronger and stronger, and he remained the same pathetic and weak. He didn't have the power. I need strength. What is it? He whispered. Naruto looked towards Konoha, where it all happened. Those who killed Sasuke and almost killed him are still alive. They live as if nothing has happened. They're still experimenting on people, period. It's so funny. What an absurdity. They seriously considered using Sasuke to blackmail Chihiyu, but he is not a manifestation of special hatred for the whole shinobi world. His defense was only Konoha. It can be said that Konoha was to blame for everything that happened. If it wasn't for Sarutobi Hiruzen and his poor students, where would Uchiha Yu have come from? You don't need to explain anything about this to Uchiha Yu. 268, and there's no need to say any nonsense about how special that guy was. If then almost killed Uchiha Yu, would he so desperately to awaken Munjiki of Sarangan, he wanted to destroy the Konoha. But unfortunately, he had no such power. And worst of all, he had no hope of a place left. The gap in strength between him and the enemy had become monstrous. His company is a negligible force. Now, when the level of power in the world, Shinobu, has reached unprecedented proportions, it looks weaker than ever. You crave power. At night he had a dream. A man in a blood-red robe appeared in front of him, his face hidden in the fog. Power. What kind of power can you give me? With what power can I take revenge? Destroy Kano, who is the end. I can exactly. Then give me the power. And soon there was a catastrophe in the shinobi world. Suddenly Naruto Uzumaki appeared from a parallel world. He turned into a mad killer with unimaginable force and a bloody rage. Having penetrated Konoha, he began a merciless massacre, destroying almost all the ninjas who arrived from the main world. That no Konoha warrior could withstand carrying him. In the end, Konoha drowned in blood. No one survived. But, having exterminated everyone, Naruto did not stop. He continued the massacre throughout the land of fire. Blood to the god of blood, skulls to the throne of skulls. With that furious cry, he was crushed by the impact of the planet crashing down from the heavens. A moment later, he was reduced to ash. What the hell? Isn't that corn? What the hell is going on? The inhabitants of the shinobi world did not understand Naruto's last words, but he was an assassin. How the hell could he not know that? The warp has invaded the ninja world. Maybe it's even for the best. Previously, such invasions into the shinobi world through distortion would have caused Uchiha from Yumini little trouble. He would have had to defeat the new boss. But now everything is different, distortion. For gods. You are pure energy substances, right? So go talk to Uchizu, and Zumi immediately went to meet with Oramet Mayuki. Aburamita Mayuki, you already know the latest developments, right? You're talking about Naruto, who was blessed by corn. Exactly. I didn't expect the shinobi world to be concluded. Traces of the warp. Tell me, if we can set the bastards, Horna and the others against this Uchiha, how do you like this idea? It makes sense. I consider strange space-time fluctuations causing a mood of chaos. This is a certain curvature. Perhaps his presence can be a shield against Sasuke, and give us time to find a way to destroy it. But if the warp destroys you, what then? Destroy it. How exactly? Drown in the flow of energy. Or will he try to decompose his consciousness with the help of warp energy? Do you believe this is possible? I have tried to change or erase his memory more than once, and it has never worked. Besides, wouldn't it be better to destroy it? In the realm of the warp, there was at least a drop of life left. Probably a terrible life. And what about Uchiha? This monster wants to wipe everything off the face of the earth. Even the warp and its chaos, its enemies that it wants to destroy, and Zumi and Temayuki soon came to the conclusion that they needed to use the sudden appearance of distortion as a shield to stop Uchiha. Do you think we can combine the powers of beings from other worlds? Or even, after passing through the warp, get into the world of Oromar? It might be better there than in this damned place. Ninja power is not based on warp. The chakra is a fusion of spiritual and physical energy, unlike the psychic force, which is alien to people. Perhaps the influence of the warp on us will be weaker. Great idea. Let's try it. After the death of Naruto Uzumaki, more and more people went crazy, flew into rage, and started senseless murders. A strange, oppressive atmosphere hung over the world of shinobi, but it is difficult to call it madness. Madmen could not cause real harm. Naruto's death was an exception. This time the world was ready. Everyone who started the massacre was quickly suppressed, and in the universe of Tekabarami Temayuki, began trying to establish contact with the warp, transmitting data streams there, wanting to tell about a terrible threat named Uchiha, in a real catastrophe, but that's all. The signals disappeared without a trace, like a stone falling into an abyss. There was no answer at all, daughter, not because there was no answer, but because the warp simply didn't care. And if communication was impossible, let the warp become a shield. A lot of things, time warp there. In order to prevent him from interfering, Tomoyuki enveloped the whole world with a star-level shinobi shell. He did not isolate the warp completely, but simply shifted its influence, allowing the invasion to take its course, until it interfered with the power of the warp to manifest itself in a new parallel world. Another world has fallen victim to warp corruption. For the Emperor. Let's save this world. In one of the parallel worlds, there was another version of the shinobi world, a world covered with endless megacities. There were hundreds of warships in orbit, and the world itself seemed colossal, as if it consisted of many merged planets. In the depths of space, rose gold sacred tower, staring directly into the clouds. Powerful psi radiation emanated from within, creating space and time. At the top, in a hall with a shining throne, a figure on a golden throne was slowly rising. The others followed her, and the soldiers stood up. For the Emperor. For the sake of mankind, in the universe inhabited by Uchiha Izumi and his allies, time to come. Tamayuki, hold them off as long as possible. This way, we will have time to collect more data. Don't worry. I can handle it. No, something's wrong. I feel a disturbance. The fluctuations of space-time are intensifying. Someone is trying to enter our world. Uchiha. No, if it was him, I wouldn't be able to hold out for long. And this creature, which I can constantly support, there is no danger. Then 269, then let them in. Let's see who they are, okay. This world is also polluted. Wait, something's wrong. Not at all. Why? Why is this world wrapped in a cocoon of chakras, as if we are inside someone's animal? Erosion of wood. No, that's not it. Somewhere in the shinobi world, a few shadows flashed. With these drivers just being here, it seemed not only the breath of the warp, but also a monstrous, undisclosed chakra, covering the whole world. They had never seen anything like it before. All the warp-stricken worlds they had ever visited were either already dying or hopelessly heading for destruction. And what kind of world is this? The distortion hung over him like a thick shadow, and yet there was not the slightest sense of chaos in the shinobi world. On the contrary, life reigned around, everything was filled with energy. Naruto Uzumaki looked at this world and involuntarily froze. Greetings, guests from another world. At that moment, two figures appeared. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He did not recognize the first one, but the aura of the Uchiha clan emanated from her. The second role of the representative of the Aburami clan. It was the first time he had seen their conversations, and yet there was no trace of distortion coming from them. So, if they had appeared so suddenly, they would certainly have been the strongest of all those who were in front of him. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, I am the Emperor's son. Perhaps you don't know yet, your world has already been hit by what we call the warp. While it is almost imperceptible, but sooner or later, his power will break through and destroy everything around. And then your world will come to an end. We've come to save you. Only under the protection of the Emperor can this world be saved, Naruto spoke calmly, watching them, and at the same time feverishly going over everything he knew in his memory. But neither in his memories, nor even in this Naruto manga, did the Emperor seem to him, these two were not there. Is any abnormal chakra that pronounces this world connected with them? He wondered how to find them all the horror of the warp. Because this world was different from all that he had seen before. Perhaps the locals simply do not understand what the daughter of the reflection of light was dealing with, and played on Naruto's golden cereals, but on the contrary, Uchiha Izumi and Aburami Temiyuki understood everything without words. Obviously, somewhere in a parallel reality, one of the worlds has become a victim of distortion. Naruto must have traveled among the stars of Warhammer, wandered the force there and now returned to, but it didn't matter. More importantly, they found hope in Naruto's eyes, the point of salvation. Perhaps the Emperor will open the way for them to escape from this doomed world. Kacha Heizumi stepped forward and said with genuine zeal, I know everything. I know you and your words. We have long honored the great name of the Emperor and have long dreamed of becoming part of his army. Tell me, Naruto-san, is there a way to transport us all to the world where the Emperor resides? We are tired of this world. We dream of living there, under the protection of the Emperor. He was sincere. Being a traveler who can temporarily roll back, with an unlimited number of restarts by the system. Izumi has long ceased to be afraid of the warp, or even the gods of chaos. In the end, according to the laws of the system, his body remained unchanged, and only when his consciousness was completely distorted. Obeying someone else's will, starting with suggestion and ending with brainwashing, the system declared death. And then time would rewind, even if he had revealed the secret of the system, it would not have changed anything. In this state, it would be impossible to change the preservation without his will. Only by fully controlling himself could he change the save points. His cheat was perfect, and the only drawback was that it was activated. Only at the moment of death, in a sense he became immortal. In any world, sooner or later, relying on his deception, he reached the top. But everything collapsed after meeting Uchiha Yu, a monster who was learning to control time itself, because of him. His endless time loop became finite. Deception has lost all meaning. And the worst part was that it was no longer possible to fix the situation. Not because the system was broken, but because she was powerless against Yuke, and if for others it was just a scary story. Then Izumi, it was a sentence. He really wanted to escape to another world. In other worlds, no matter how hard it was, no matter how bitter it was, there was always a chance for life. And here, if Uchiha Yu finally masters the power of time, that's it. The world will disappear. There will be no more rescues. The end is near. You're not like that. Naruto warily noticed that he instantly tensed up. Streams of chakra bubbled around, alarm flashed in the pupils. The man spoke as if he knew of the Emperor's existence. But it's impossible, the Emperor's world, and this world from different universes. To completely alien spaces. How could he know about this? These were the insidious plans of Jinsha. Has his influence reached our days? Ah, the Emperor. Grant me strength, Naruto raised his hands. At the same moment, a powerful wave of psychic energy burst out of the depths of his being, engulfing and scanning the entire galaxy. And then he froze. His eyes widened in horror, as huge, monstrous and creepy. He felt someone's presence among the stars in a wave of chakra, colossal as a star. The worm. A monstrous worm drifted in the universe, a race of Tyranids. Great devourer, heretics. So I was deceived. Vixinos. In an instant, Naruto understood everything. His chakra flared up, the space trembled, and he hit the beam from Yumi. Breaking through the fabric of reality, he rushed away, into a world where the Emperor's power still shone. He did not expect that these worms penetrated here and even possessed the run chakra. Immediately. They were doomed to a tactical retreat. 270, they literally got into the den once. Now everything is clear, it is absolutely clear, why this planet looks normal, even despite the creation of the warp. There is not the slightest trace of chaos here. These creatures were currently using the least powerful chakra to isolate the world from the general warp. What's going on? Suddenly, Naruto thought that something was wrong. At that moment, spacetime itself froze, as if petrified. He could no longer tear apart the fabric of spacetime and lead Sasuke and the others out of this universe. Accept it, Naruto. The spacetime of this world is sealed by me. You can't leave anyway. Everything we said before is true. Compared to the warp, there is something much more deadly, more monstrous in this world. This world is no longer safe. At that moment, Aburami Temiyuki stepped forward and, barely raising his hand, brought down a monstrous spiritual force on Naruto. This force pinned him to the ground and sealed all his energy in one pulse. This is complete nonsense. Damn worms. The power of rebellion. Naruto for a moment did not believe the words about Barama Temayuka. The danger is worse than distortion. What a ridiculous joke, and these speeches about the world where the emperor lives. Ha! These damned creatures just want to return to the embrace of the great devourer. His mission here is clear to the solar world from the common warp, and in the end, to resettle people here from the Imperium of humanity so that humanity can become great again. It was a wonderful situation. Yes, the strength of the local creature was impressive, but they are incomparable with the Imperium. And the main thing is that there is no warp here. It was only necessary to find a way and, with the help of the Emperor, strengthen this world from creation. Then it would become the true ideal of humanity. And now someone claims that there is a threat worse than the warp. Who would believe it? Who would believe the words of these Xenos? The chakra is an extraordinary power. This fusion of spirit and body is not at all like a psychic force. Safe and universal energy at the same time. And one day, when the influence of the warp is completely destroyed, when the Imperium of humanity enters this world, the creature will regain the greatness of the Golden Age thanks to the chakra. And you want to say that this world is dangerous. Roar, the destructive power of the mighty emperor burst out of Naruto's body. For a moment, he managed to break through Aburami Temayuki, dissipating his energy field, but spacetime was already sealed. At the other end of the universe, Aburami Temayuki, who could turn stars into dust by only slightly increasing the pressure, and the psi force capable of destroying the planet, crumbled. Naruto collapsed to the ground again, he couldn't move. At that moment, Naruto looked like Sunaken, pinned to the ground by a five-toed mountain. In the face of absolute brutality, he had no shadow of resistance left. Soon, Aburami Temayuki removed the seal, dissipating his power. Are you ready to calm down and listen to us? You must understand that your strength is nothing compared to mine, like an ant in front of a mountain. Your strength doesn't matter to me in the slightest. Would I, with my power, renounce my identity and lie to you? I can kill you here and now, or fully repair itself from the body to the soul. I know that you are protected by the Emperor's protection, but this is not the world. Well, now you believe it, and Temayuki Barami came closer, looking straight into Naruto Uzumaki's eyes. Once upon a time, if it had been another time, he would have already started infecting in order to find a way to other worlds and absorb them. Other Popedans are afraid of the warp, but not him. There are creatures of his level in the Warhammer, and if he continues to evolve, one day his strength will not be inferior to Roy. And maybe even surpass him, and only regret that he had to face such a creature as Uchiha and suppress his cruel, insatiable nature in order to enter into an alliance with people and with those who are just food for him. If he had defeated you, Uchiha Izumi would have died long ago. What are you really like? Naruto got up from the ground, looking warily at Temayuki and Uchiha Izumi. Outwardly he seemed to agree, but in his heart he did not believe a single word. On the contrary, he was now sure that they were Tyranids, the chakra point, different from the psyches. It is completely based on the connection of the spirit and the body, which means it is purely material. The stronger the body, the higher the activity, the more chakra, and Tyranids are creatures with a monstrously strong bodies. The fact that they gained such incredible strength after receiving the chakra is not surprising. All these friendly gestures of theirs are just a deception. They want to use it to find a way back to that world, and they will not be able to gain control over him only thanks to the patronage of the Emperor. Otherwise he would have been in their captivity long ago. We have already said that there is something more terrible lurking in this world. Creatures worse than the warp. Well, judging by your expression, you don't believe it anyway. Then see for yourself. I'll show you my memories. After that, you will understand why Chuyu is called a monster. Kaburami Temayuki immediately realized that Naruto didn't believe them. So I decided not to waste words and just showed an excerpt from the battle with you. It was a picture of monstrous proportions that appeared before them. More than consciousness could contain. It was a memory from a previous rebirth, the one that he had once passed on to Uchiha Izumatoshku. Space-time happened. From Tamayuki's point, he struck the sun with his palm, crushing it like a soft fruit. And then his gaze broke through the darkness between the spaces and discerned there the shadow of a man. Uchiha Temayuki attacked. No, this name is not protected. Rather, he just killed an insect. This memory shocked Naruto. Is this his real strength? It's beyond comprehension. While their world was at war between planets, was the government supplied with a stellar scale? When the guy gets to this stage. 271, the battle raged. I was scared to even look at these attacks, able to crush the stars. No, it's still all the world of tires, with the sun over their heads, it has become so fragile, as if made of glass. At that moment, Naruto Uzumaki suddenly lost his confidence. Did these creatures really not belong to the beauty of the Tyranids, possessing such power, capturing his body? Breaking through the Emperor's protection, repairing his soul, it shouldn't have been difficult. Is something like an absolute catastrophe really happening in this world? Take a closer look. When we say a natural disaster, a nightmare, we mean this. This is Uchiha Izumi stepped forward, and methodically, scaring away this performance depicted in the image of Aburami Temayuki destroying Uchiha. What? I could only answer Naruto, but he was stunned. I saw Uchiha die, and I couldn't think about my eyes. Yes, he was strong, Naruto felt it, but compared to a creature capable of destroying a star with one blow, their strength was incomparable, and if not for the viewing angle, Naruto would have decided that the real enemy was a colossal monster larger in size, the star itself. And now they're telling him that the enemy is that sick guy. Is this a joke? But every minute, as the memory unfolded in front of them, Naruto began to feel something strange. About this cloud of Heiyu. He's been killed so many times already, and he's still alive. Can he still be reborn? It is beyond any logic. There weren't even any warp demons back then. Warp demons are also subject to immortality, but when their material body perishes in the world of matter, they return to the warp. It's just a pity that they are there. In fact, they are not immortal at all, they just haven't received mortal wounds. It's like on the internet, you can't kill a player sitting on the other side of the screen, but what about this Uchiha? It's a completely different matter. He's clearly not a warp demon, the body is destroyed, the soul is erased, memory is erased. Space-time connections. Torn apart, and yet he is resurrected again and again, with so many deaths, such tortures. In such a frequency of destruction, anyone would have long been formed into oblivion, there would be no trace left. Special intellectuals of the soul in most worlds is the final, real death. Total annihilation, where even the gods are powerless. This is called true destruction. The body can be transferred, but the death of the soul is the end, complete dissolution into nothingness. In the world where Naruto Uzumaki appeared, the soul had a decisive value. Even the demons of the warp, in essence, died if their soul was destroyed, but nothing like that happened to Uchiha Yu. He dies and returns. For him, the death of the soul is akin to a snowflake of dandruff falling from a person's head. How is this possible? Why is he still alive? His soul is crushed, how can he not die? This is Uchiha Yu. An endlessly evolving, immortal, indestructible catastrophe. Neither death, nor annihilation, nor even the erasure of the soul or memory, have any power over him. It cannot be sealed, it cannot be erased, it cannot be eradicated, but don't be fooled by its human appearance. In fact, we are looking at an empty shell wrapped in human skin. A real catastrophe, its existence initially excludes ours. There is only one thing possible between us, one person. Continuing to search, I'm going to die soon, everyone continued to watch. It soon became clear that something was going wrong. Inside of memories, darkness became thicker, denser, almost tangible. Killing Uchiha Yu required more and more strength, and it became obvious that the giant who fought with him was gradually weakening. And Yu, on the contrary, was steadily gaining strength. The limit. An obstacle. There are no such words for it, but it continues to grow, expand and expand. Finally, the darkness swallowed everything. Any movement died down, and the giant, who once played with planets and tore up stars, fell. See. This is Uchiha Yu. A complete disaster, endlessly growing, immortal and eternal. Any energy is his food. The chakra, the power of the stars, cosmic radiation, even the simplest forms of energy, such as motion or gravity, are all absorbed. Tell me, can the warp destroy something like that? Numbness. Naruto and the others were shocked. Such terrifying grandeur, such unfathomable power. Is there a being in the universe that cannot be killed or destroyed? At the moment when Naruto was already in shock, the voice of Aburamita Mayuki brought him out of his stupor. Something doesn't add up here, I suddenly found a contradiction. This man himself said that the giant in question. It's him, right? But he's dead, isn't he? From the hand of Uchiha Yu. Then who is now standing in front of them, Naruto said it out loud, because it happened in the future. Do you know what a temporary rollback is? You could only see the events from a previous time loop. That was the first time I learned about the existence of time cycles. At first, I didn't believe that there could be anything truly immortal, so I went to destroy Uchiha Yu, or at least collect data. Find a way to kill him. And did you see how it ended? I lost. I'm dead. He died at the hands of someone he was supposed to destroy with one click. Temporary cancellation. Naruto asked. Yes. This is my ability. If it wasn't for her, if I couldn't constantly rewind time, we all wouldn't have existed for a long time. We would have been killed by the hand of Chihyu long ago, but the one you saw was not there. Now it's just a pale shadow of who he was then. The real one was much scarier. Scarier. No. It was impossible to see only pitch darkness. And I don't even think that you have come to an agreement with him, as if we are all human beings, and can get along peacefully with each other. As Aburami Tamayuki has already said, Uchiha Yu only looks like. But inside this living catastrophe, there is a monster without a heart, and do you know what its ultimate goal is? Which of the destruction? Absolute, all-encompassing destruction. Life, energy, matter, any form of existence. He is the embodiment of emptiness. If this was an ordinary person, no, if he retained even a shred of normality, even with strength, he probably just enjoyed power. But with Uchiha Yu, everything is different. It really works, only the words of Uchiha Izumi and Aburami Tamayuki Naruto participants are speechless. He could not have thought that something so alien to common sense could exist in the entire universe. Fake. A fairy tale. But no, immortality, endless growth, in addition, the desire to destroy everything. It's a beautiful disaster, a point of even warp. 272, this monster turned out to be more terrible than the chaos gods themselves. In any case, even the most disgusting of the warp did not seek to destroy everything that exists. They may have wreaked havoc and destruction, but the Imperium of humanity and other great powers continued to exist. People got hurt. It was painful, hard, but still they survived. They were still alive, but what about Uchiha Yu? This madman wants to destroy everything, the real god of destruction, but you have the opportunity to temporarily roll back, don't you? If so, then sooner or later you will know the victory of Uchiha Yu. I don't see any point in designing. The last question was asked. If the possibility of a temporary return really exists, any sane person will understand that it is terribly very endless time, endless attempts. No matter how significant his enemy is, if there is enough time, sooner or later, there will be a way to win. But if so, why? Ha, yes, I have this ability, Uchiha Izumi replied with fervor. The power of the temporary pullback is incredible. If I could use it indefinitely, I would have no doubts. In one of the circles of rebirth, I finally defeated Uchiha Yu, I will kill him, I will wipe him off the face of the earth however. But you don't understand, he continued. Uchiha Yu is much scarier than you think. He adapts to the power of time. Do you understand what this means? Theoretically, my ability can be activated indefinitely. In theory, I have nothing to be afraid of. But this is just a theory. In fact, Uchiha Yu is already adapting to the passage of time. My temporary turning point is no longer infinite, each new rebirth of investments in this milestone. If I die and reappear again and again, one day he will fully get used to the power of time. Imagine, he said in a trembling voice, our world is drowning in darkness. Everything stops, life disappears. And suddenly the time rollback turns on, everything returns to normal again. But when you adapt, time will turn back again, and the darkness will not disappear anywhere. We will be reborn in hopeless darkness to rule again. And so it will continue forever. In eternal torment, Izumi Yuchi's face came from a hopeless seal. The horror that has befallen Uchiha Yu has long pushed all boundaries. He didn't care anymore, even his cunning seemed pointless. If only he were dead. Otherwise, his power will turn into a curse. Even if the system cleanses the body of all negative consequences, so what if there is no hope, there is only despair. Huge, endless despair. Naruto Uzumaki was shocked. He arrived only to save one of the worlds being destroyed by the distortion, but he was faced with an unimaginable. Something so terrifying that his mind accepted what he saw, all his plans collapsed. If Izumi's words are true, then this world is no better than another, no, even worse. More hopeless in the old world, despite the threat of the chaos gods, humans and other races still had a spark of hope. On some planets, everything was fine. And here, if Uchiha Yu, a being whose very existence leads to the destruction of all things, is not destroyed, then the fate of the world is sealed. People are finished. Well, now you understand, distortion has nothing to do with it. Aburami Tamayuki said with fervor. Tell us, Naruto Uzumaki, is there any way to get into that world? He looked at Naruto with desperate hope. After all, he had already tried everything. In the last round of rebirths, he even used his own system as the last trump card up his sleeve. And what came of it? Uchiha Yu not only did not defeat him, on the contrary, he involuntarily strengthened this monster. How the hell can you kill such a creature? If there was any chance, he would have escaped from this cursed place. It is better to live in the world of Orima than in the world of Shinobi, full of madness. Alas, it won't work. I tried. The transmission is not working, Naruto said after a short pause. The only thing possible is to use the Emperor's power. It allows you to contact the warp from that world and send something tangible here. But there is no turning back, and Naruto's words only increased the despair in the eyes of Izumi and Tamayuki. Besides, he continued, I believe the real threat comes from the warp. Uchiha Yu only seems immortal. Maybe you just haven't found a way to kill him completely yet. But if he can't resist the decomposition of the warp, then everything will change. Naruto fell silent. His gaze dimmed, his thoughts were racing. After a while, he added more calmly, he knew the warp too well. I grew up in Orim's world, saw his nightmares with my own eyes. Perhaps Izumi and Tamayuki only touched this abyss and did not understand the depth of the threat. Warp is not just darkness, it is a special spacetime that permeates the entire cosmos. Even star-level powers are nothing compared to him. So you don't believe? Well, let's bet, Izumi grinned. What are we willing to bet on? Naruto cautiously asked to find out if the warp could destroy Uchiha Yu. There was almost no time left. Soon you will start tearing apart spacetime itself, and we will all die. But before I die, before I come back, I want you to give me your memory. Then I'll give it to you in the next round. That's how you find out how terrible Uchiha Yu is. I agree, Naruto replied after a few seconds of thought. If the warp can resist the monster, great. And if not, then in the next turn of time, he will join forces with these people. In any case, there is no other way out, but Naruto did not want to lead the Imperium of Humanity from fire to flame. His goal was to bring them to peace, even in the shinobi world. If this place becomes even scarier than before, the Emperor will never give the order to send people here. It will not be salvation, but a mass execution, instead of leaving for the ordinary world. Naruto Uzumaki, following the amazing sneeze and the infected, got into a new world. There, using special methods, they observed the former world, which was already observed in ARPA. 273 now, there were 2 levels of being between them and this world. Once there was only one world, but the hyperspace shuttle discovered another one, even though it was expected. The world of Shinobi did not stand still. He continued to grow rapidly, striving for new worlds, mastering new technologies. The arrival of Naruto Uzumaki and his companion did not slow down progress at all. On the contrary, everything went as before. Even if they didn't arrive here right now, they would have to look for a trace in this world. At first, the exploding dragon vein could still watch the onslaught of Chihyu. But now that it is exhausted, nothing can stop his invasion. Darkness has descended. At that moment, with the help of special sensors, Uchiha Izumi and his team of world observers noticed the warp. Space, the daughter of space, on a temporary break, split the sky, and darkness gushed out of it, thick as ink, instantly engulfing the whole world. The shinobi world disappeared almost instantly, and all the detectors installed there immediately fell silent. Fortunately, their equipment was not only in the world of shinobi, but also in the entire universe. From the height of the orbit, they saw how the painted darkness was madly spreading across the star system, ready to absorb all the starlight, but their attention was not focused on this. But in fact, in the ARP, through the body of a monstrous worm, visible on the eye, hovering at the edge of the galaxy, they could distinguish the traces of the warp. They also saw the black mass slowly seeping into the ARP. Ah, it's interesting. In the general world, Uchiha Yu tilted his head, looking at the open spacetime passage in front of him. He felt that the world on our side was different from everyone else's. There is another source of energy in it, a chaotic, active, unreal force. He had never encountered this before, but he didn't care. As soon as his darkness touched this area, she immediately began to furiously observe the inner strength, as in fact, the abilities to teach her were not truly divine. Just 2 moderate strong skills evolved to create a monster that surpassed common sense. At first, he could observe only the leakage of the chakra, a small amount of solar energy, and a fraction of sunlight. But at the same time, as he matured, he expanded the range of observed energy, chakral, vital, natural, solar, spiritual, even kinetic, and potential any energy that he could afford. However, they were observed in different ways. The more active and unusual the energy was, the faster it could be absorbed, and the warp energy is one of the most active. It was easy, fast, and almost instantaneous to absorb. His strength grew steadily. Immensely, he himself did not understand what forces he was devouring, but he did not care if it existed. Then it needs to be destroyed. This warp world was both a real warp, and its projection, rather, a pretty offshoot of the great warp spreading in the world of Ermer. In fact, there were practically no differences, and now waves of unimaginable power rose in the warp space adjacent to the shinobi world. A thick black, icy, deathly darkness slowly, like spilled ink, crept out of the very depths. Warp, rapidly filling everything around, expanding and absorbing the energy that exists in this dimension. What is it? No, no way. My soul is crumbling. It devours my soul, my whole being. Escape. Hurry up, run. Ah, save me. Save me. Panicked screams echoed through the warp. The demons, once immortal, tasted true destruction for the first time. The final death for them was incomprehensible. As everything in the old order of things collapsed in an instant. This creature didn't just destroy, it absorbed the warp energy itself. For them, it was beyond comprehension, and they rushed away, trying to escape from this universe, but it was already too late. A whirlwind of unimaginable power raged in the warp, crushing all life, dragging demons into the abyss, and turning them into dust resistance. How could they resist? How can you resist such a horror? Creatures unable to lift even a star are now facing an attack that breaks through the warp itself. What can they do against her? For mortals, these demons are a nightmare, an irresistible evil, but for Uchiha, they are just little bugs on the road. Destroy it. At that moment a bloody flash broke out in the warp, the shadow of a monstrous creature appeared. The energy of the warp froze for a moment, and then a stream of Olin fire burst out of it, transformed and condensed into the chakra, and soon a bloody giant appeared before the universe, a giant of incomparable power. Unlike the world of Oromar. Here, the chakra is a universal all-encompassing force that can directly affect matter. Having it in abundance, you can create a body out of nothing. Thus, the god of chaos Horn gained the ability to incarnate, turning his energy into a chakra, and creating flesh of unprecedented power in the world of matter. True strength is the power of battle. Fight. Fight death. Death. Death, without any doubt, Horn's incarnation tore the fabric of spacetime and rushed into the world where Uchiha was located. It's useless. It's all useless. This monster is able to absorb the energy of the warp as food. In the parallel world of Uzumaki, Naruto looked at the screens with rage. Uchiha turned out to be incredibly strong. The distortion of space didn't hurt him. On the contrary, he even summoned Horn's incarnation. Izumi, get ready. Keep collecting data. I'm going to die. Aburami Tamayuki's voice rang out nearby. To die. Naruto turned to him. Yes, I'm going to die. With my life, I will buy some time for the shinobi world. But there is also Korn. What if he can handle Uchiha? It's out of the question, Naruto. Don't you understand? The incarnation of Korn is pure energy, chakra, and for Uchiha it's just food. He is immortal. Neither the destruction of the body, nor the death of the soul, nor the poisoned consciousness has no mind. Korn will fall. And then it was my time. 274 volts of eternal dead silence, a hint of boundless darkness, the bloody giant silently roared, and rushed into the heart of darkness where Uchiha stood. Whether he would be able to win, he looked at her without any expression on his face. Judging by the scale, by the incredible power, this creature surpassed his current one in strength and fury. It was the embodiment of terrifying might, an unprecedented avatar of destruction. In the Wormer world, it is almost impossible to create such a creature. For the incarnation of the god of chaos, the very horn in matter, huge sacrifices are needed. But here, in the world of shinobi, everything is much simpler. It is enough to turn the energy of the warp into a chakra, and in the next instant, the giant horn reached the center of Regal. A colossal energy surge swept around. The two giants converged at the same time, and the world shuddered. Wu Chihayu was almost instantly depressed. His colossal Susana, woven from pure chakra, began to crack and crumble under the fierce onslaught of the god circle. However, although Horn's incarnation was superior to him, it did not reach the level of absolute superiority. With each passing second, Horn's incarnation weakened, while Yu himself, on the contrary, became more omnipotent, and this fight caused Horn himself a feeling of irritation. Yes, it is irritation. This monster did not succumb to the influence of reason. The blow that was supposed to turn her into dust only split her apart. Without striking a fatal blow, although he drew strength from the warp, from an inexhaustible source, as the evolution continued. The warp energy was depleted, and soon began to feed his avatar completely. Horn fell. Strange. Horn died, but Uchiha did not understand what it was. All he knew was that such a creature had no place in Shin Byochiki's world. His gaze settled on the warp. He watched indifferently as the demons one by one turned into nothing. Their souls lay before him like unprotected books, and he read them freely, absorbing all the contents, all the secrets. And then he realized what was happening. That's it. A warp, another world. I wonder where he fixed his gaze into the most powerful warp. There, on a copper throne, sat the bloody giant Horn himself, one of the four gods of the warp. Now in this case, he was the only one who, but over time, respect is maintained here. And the others met in an instant of their gaze. And a stream of bloody information flooded into Yu's mind, trying to infect him, fix him, make a toy for Horn. Because of this connection, a storm of scarlet energy gushed into his body, a force capable of corrupting an entire planet. Uchiha did not resist. He would save the energy to overwhelm himself, let the horn of the accused pervert him, but it was all useless. Neither his body, nor his soul, nor his mind experienced the slightest distortion. Even the technique of working with the eyes was not required. All the energy was absorbed by him, processed, turned into a part of himself, and Korn, realizing everything, looked away, ceasing any influence. He realized that this was not a person. It is something beyond reason, and even divine. In comparison, the warp gods themselves are only a manifestation of chaos, sources of madness. And this creature is the embodiment of emptiness. Live disaster handle of the embodiment of the void, the gods of the warp, the children of chaos. The embodiment of universal madness, the opponents of intelligent beings, but even they're not as creepy as the you. They don't need to destroy the entire galaxy, they just need a game. They are not the enemies of life itself, but who is he? He is the enemy of everything. The enemy of life itself. The opposite of being. The very personification of nothingness, cold, darkness and death, losing. It seems it's time to act in a parallel world. Aburamita Mayuki, looking at the sudden deathly silence, just shook his head. Everything was going as he expected. He admitted that the creatures from the warp are really strong, but their opponent is Uchiha Yu. A monster capable of adapting even to temporary setbacks. A monster that already surpasses time. If it weren't for you, Tamayuki probably would have become one of the bosses himself. That Uchiha Izumi would have to defeat in the future. And he still doesn't know how to protect himself from a temporary rollback. Perhaps the only way is to achieve such power. In order for the ability to adapt itself, to adapt to the law of time, he never sought to save the world. He was trying to save himself. After the defeat of the incarnation to the chorus, spacetime was again torn apart. Itamayuki was right, the hyperspace shuttle couldn't stop Yu's invasion. They needed a technology that can completely erase the traces of spacetime. Well, Naruto Uzumaki, do you believe now? This world is much more hopeless. There, though with difficulty, humanity still has a way to go. And here, as long as Uchiha Yu exists, only the final death awaits us. You have made a decision. Will you join us? Together we can find a way to destroy you. Uchiha from Yumi looked at Naruto. He was silent. Sometimes the truth is scarier than any lie. Right now, he wished with all his heart that these people were deceivers, that their whole story about the monster Yu was fiction. And not a monstrous reality, as it is better to lie, even terrifying, than a real catastrophe. Lies can be exposed. Real death is irreversible. Let the suffering live only in stories and books. After all, no matter how much they sing about torment, no one wants to experience it himself. Tell me everything you said. A lie, right? He placed all his hope on this question, looking at Izumi. He wanted so much to believe that Uchiha Yu didn't exist, that it was just a trick of the chaos gods. I'll show you. Look for yourself. Tamayuki's voice was quiet, almost emotionless, and at the same moment, 275 in the universe, a certain supreme god slowly opened his eyes and, stretching out his hand, caused the curvature of spacetime. Naruto Uzumaki appeared in his palm, as if from a funnel. What is it? He exhaled, only raising his head. Naruto saw a dazzling starry sky. Looking down, he discerned a bottomless, impenetrable dark continent below. And he felt the colossal, unimaginable power of the chakra in everything around him, so strong that it surpassed everything he could perceive. It was as if he was navigating a world made of pure chakra. You're in my hand. A voice boomed. A man named Aburami Tamayuki appeared in front of him. In the hand. Seriously, Naruto fell silent. Recent pictures have floated into my memory, a giant present that can easily destroy an entire star, right? That's exactly what you're thinking. And now I'm going to show you what Uchiha Yu is, the embodiment of despair and horror. Tamayuki said that he clearly saw all of Naruto's thoughts and all of his confusion. I myself had the same effect when I first saw the memories of Chi Izumi. What he learned about Uchiha Yu seemed so ridiculous at the time that it destroyed the very idea of common sense. There shouldn't be such creatures in the human world. It is impossible, only immortal, eternal, infinitely growing. Does this really happen? Aburame Tamaki wanted Naruto himself was aware of the sinister nature Sasuke. For him, it's not even the politics of politics, just a thought movement. I really hoped that this was all someone's joke, that you just deceived me. Naruto blurted out. You're too weak to lie to you, Tamayuki replied coldly. Spacetime shuddered. Under the guidance of Tamayuki, Naruto was transported into the world, influential by the darkness of his daughter. Entered the devastated land of the shinobi world, and felt how he was slowly following you. Then they went up into space together, and Naruto saw one star after another disappear into the darkness. At that moment, he finally believed that Uchiha Yu is a reality. Such a catastrophe can only be called a major apocalypse. The world of shinobi has ceased to be safe for observation. And yet, this is not the despair of the world itself, Izumi said when they returned to the current. Not yet connected by the shinobi catastrophe of the world. This is despair caused by one person. If Uchiha Yu is destroyed, the world will be saved. Are you sure you're training him to win? Naruto asked. No. That's why I need your strength. Even more power. If possible, I would like to unsubscribe from this universe. It's always worth a try. Besides attacking Uchiha Yu, we can also retreat, wait for a new offensive, and then defeat him in the future. And yet, if we don't win and run away, then we only need the president. So, are you going to choose death? They asked him. No. I don't want to die, then we will act together. There doesn't seem to be any other way out. I will share my memories with you. Go to my world, there we will have at least a little more time. To Naruto's side. He had no choice. Under his guidance, they began to flee, eager to leave this doomed world. In the icy abyss of darkness, Aburami Tamayuki once again tore apart the spatial time continuum and rushed. Of course he was afraid. He was afraid of death. I didn't want to go where there was no going back. To detain the enemy means to go to certain death, but he had no choice. There was no one stronger in the shinobi world. Only he could buy time. He didn't want to do it, but he had to. He didn't want to be stuck in a cycle of rebirth forever. And he didn't want to die completely. Fortunately, they still had insurance, a temporary rollback of time provided by Uchiha Izumi. If you don't take a chance now, then when Uchiha Yu fully masters the power of time, it will be too late for Kaburami Tamiyukapal. Space-time was torn apart again and again, revealing many passages. Eternal darkness spread, swallowing everything around, and the cycle of rebirth began on you. Dead again. But it's not in vain. Our power is growing. We have already created a hyperspace shuttle independent of dragon life. Now, with the power of the world at Arimi, sooner or later, we will defeat Uchiha Yu. Uchiha Izumi clenched his fist. His gaze was firm and determined. The appearance of Naruto brought two important results at once. Firstly, it gave them the opportunity to escape, and secondly, it provided a lot of spatial and temporal coordinates, as well as new human resources. Moreover, they could count on the technical support of the Emperor himself from the world of Oromer. Kizumi remembered that the technologies of the inhabitants of that world were incredibly complex and extraordinary. Although the Imperium was in decline, the Emperor himself lived from the time when humanity was just beginning its journey, and lived up to the age of the stars. He is a living history, a carrier of incalculable knowledge, and they could even try to appeal to the gods of chaos. Who knows, perhaps in the face of annihilation, even these insane entities will decide to take action against Uchiha Yu. Glory to the Emperor, the sizzle pierced, and suppressed the whole world. In that moment, on top of a high tower, Naruto was making his daily prayer. Suddenly, space trembled, and reality began to crumble. Only something was entering this world. This Naruto raised his head to the sky. But his gaze didn't catch anything. Until that moment, when a monstrous wave of chakra swept across the shinobi world, Naruto abruptly turned pale. But after a few moments, he seemed to understand something, and his expression softened. A new memory popped into his mind. The world of shinobi had fallen, and in another world, on a golden throne, it was motionless and withered. A mummified man. The point is this phenomenon has been observed in the world of shinobi eyes. Naruto? The rollback of time, the race of insects, Uchiha Yu, many years ago, he sheltered a boy, in whose body there was a strange force, not like psi energy. Looking at him, the Emperor recalled the old days, even before humanity was created in space. Then he read a manga called Naruto, and this boy amazingly approached her hero Uzumaki Naruto, checking his memory. He realized what it was. Indeed, Naruto, the chakra, is a force that surpasses all energies, connecting spirit and flesh. Theoretically, anyone who carries at least a grain of this energy is able to extract it from his life. This means that by strengthening the body and spirit, you can endlessly strengthen the chakras. Perhaps this power will become the key to the region with the warp to Naruto. It can become the hope of the entire Imperium of humanity. What a pity. 276. Unfortunately, Naruto was in the past again, fortunately. Although the method of chakra synthesis was never deciphered, Naruto's flesh was preserved. He created chakras from his family, endowing the Imperium with a new supernatural activity called the chakra. Most recently, Naruto was reunited with this world. Thanks to him, he learned about the existence of the world. Naruto realized that both worlds were beginning to converge. The power of distortion penetrated the shinobi world when he discovered the world for himself. In his heart, the idea was born to relocate to humanity, bring the entire empire of humanity to the world of shinobi. Compared to reality, the shinobi world seemed like a paradise to them, a world without a warp. If this isn't heaven, then what is? Without the warp, without the chaos gods, it will be able to make people grow freely and regain the splendor of the golden age. What about the Atsutsuki clan? He'll get it. In his eyes, the Atsutsuki clan was only a mountain creature, capable of oppressing underdeveloped civilizations that have not even reached the interstellar level. Against the threat of the warp, it was nothing. It was only enough to have a solid ninja world from the warp particles that penetrated it. And humanity would have found a safe world incomparably better than this terrible place where they cling to life today. However, the plan had not yet been fully implemented, not even the transition, when something terrible happened in the shinobi world. A creature appeared. An insignificant death, and a slowdown in development, slowing down any energy, and striving to destroy all existing ones. A real catastrophe, period. If you don't destroy Uchiha Yu, will the Imperium of humanity move into the world of shinobi? This is complete madness. Such a decision is tantamount to suicide. It is better to stay in this world, even if there is a threat of the warp, at least the whole of humanity still has a way to survive. And what about the world of tires? This is a death sentence. The gods of chaos, no matter how disgusting they are, in any case, do not seek to destroy the entire galaxy and wipe out all life, earth, all matter, all mass. If the chaos gods are disgusting players looking for entertainment, then Uchiha Yu is a mad butcher, who wants to kill everyone without exception, including only the players. The shinobi world was finally doomed after he learned about Uchiha Yu. The meaning of the shinobi world in the Emperor's heart collapsed to the limit. Does this mean that he needs to be abandoned, taught? Teaching Uchiha Yu is the enemy of life itself. And now, when the two worlds are connected by unknown achievements, even if they grow incredibly, it will inevitably invade this world. And then the warp will become its food, the bright morning star will go out, eternal darkness will cover everything, destroy. It will be destroyed, and that's it. It will be destroyed. There is only one way out to help the world with tires. To do everything to destroy Uchiha Yu, one cycle of rebirth has already passed. Temporary rollback. If the rollback of time does not affect their universe, then they should have retained the memory of the previous iteration. But now he has received information about the previous cycle of rebirth from Naruto, from those memories that belonged to Chi Yu herself. This meant that their universe had also experienced a temporary decline, and the Emperor was unable to resist his influence. Only nothing could be done. Absolutely nothing. Even if he didn't want to help the shinobi world, he would have to do it. After all, Uchiha Yu is already beginning to adapt to the power of time. As soon as he fully masters this power, something terrible will happen, so the Uchiha form Yumi will be absorbed by Yu, and will be trapped in the abyss of dead darkness. Since then, each new rollback of time will return him to this darkness as a point of rebirth, while Yu himself will remain unchanged, continuing to infinitely increase his strength. When that happens, even if they have a chance to defeat Yu, it will be too late. They will forever be trapped in the cycle of rebirth, unable to make a single shoe. They will not even be able to understand the reasons for their own death to despair. Complete, hopeless despair. The world of shinobi has so many spacetime coordinates. That should be enough to last a little longer. I hope so. Now that we have the technology of moving through time and space, independent of the dragon vein, it remains only to develop a technology for shielding spacetime. Once we have fully completed its development, we will finally be able to get rid of the persecution of Uchiha Yu. These parallel worlds are perfect for experimentation. At that moment, Uchiha Izumi and Aburami Temeyuki were nearby, discussing all this. They believed that if they could distance themselves from Yu's pursuers for a while and gain time, then they could find a way to destroy him. Or at least leave this universe, and the escape route had already begun to take the form of a world at Reimer. Yes, that's where they were going to run. The shinobi world turned into chaos, and although they talked about defeating Uchiha Yu, there was no hope in sight. Let's say they were given time to develop. But what's next? Will Uchiha Yu stop? Will it stop getting stronger? Just a few months, he swallowed up the whole world for the tires, and then, for a short period of time, destroyed the sun. And began to absorb all of the new sources of energy. Time flew by too fast. It was as if it was flying through time. Even Aburami Temeyuki, known for his adaptability, had never developed so quickly. Next to Uchiha Yu, he was just an insect, and then what? There is no hope of defeating Yu. Development requires time savings, and sometimes comes to a standstill, delaying the process indefinitely. By that time, Yus will become so powerful that the battle will turn into farces. The end, it's better to escape. Just to escape, to read from this universe, to a place where you can hide. Aburami Temeyuki, are you sure the Wormer world is really safe? Uchiha from Yumi suddenly thought. The world of Urimer is in contact with the world of Shinobi, and when Yu now reaches a new peak of power, whether he will stop. It is impossible. Previously, it seemed to them that there was a chance, but after they learned about the revolution of Uchiha Yu, it became clear that this monster, finding a new life or a new existence, would definitely invade the world of Urimer, in order to destroy it with his hands. In other words, even running there won't get rid of Uchiha Yu is unsafe. But for now it's relative. Maybe we should study something else. 277. We need to study the technologies that we prefer to truly travel through time and space in other omnidata. Instead, rely on the warp as an intermediary to escape to the Urimer universe. It just doesn't make sense. Perhaps in other worlds we can find a way to replace Uchiha Yu. After all, there are gods and monsters everywhere. Just because we couldn't kill Uchiha Yu doesn't mean they can't, but Tamayuki's Barami said it with obvious irritation. His cheat was completely useless, he didn't travel through time and space. If he had the chance, he would have run away long ago, instead of trying to figure out how to actually survive them. Both already had phenomenal cheats. Odin controlled the do of a network capable of infinite civilization and a community of worlds. Give him enough time, and he can swallow the whole universe. In the second case, there was a system of temporary rollback without limiting the amount of substances used. As soon as you die, time immediately goes back. Moreover, with each retreat of the regime's strength, the regime was maintained. Even if this artifact was in the hands of an ordinary pig, after a sufficient amount of rebirths, he reached the level of the supreme being. But fate decreed otherwise. They were leaders with Uchiha Yu, a real monster that shouldn't have existed at all. They weren't weak or helpless. It's just that Uchiha Yu was too strong. Do you think if the level of our technology reached a milestone that allows us to restart the universe, we would be able to destroy Uchiha Yu? Who knows? It can take millions of years to reach this level of civilization. And by that time, Uchiha Yu will become so significant that it's scary to even imagine. While they were talking, a third man approached him. Gentlemen, good news. Naruto Uzumaki spoke from the shadows, a smile playing on his lips. What's new? The Emperor gave me knowledge about the golden age of mankind. That was really good news. The news sacrificed by Naruto meant that the Emperor had already understood what was happening in this world and was going to intervene. He wasn't going to sit idly by. On the contrary, he wanted to help them crush Uchiha Yu. Obviously, the Emperor was fine, really terrifying was this creature. Compared to Uchiha Yu, even the warp seemed harmless. Destroy it, and the world will be clean and safe. People will be able to enter here and create a new civilization, instead of continuing to wallow in the garbage of Urim, where they can die at any moment. Thus, the Emperor's decision was forced, but inevitable, when the chariot of the time loop picked up all the participants. Uchiha Izumi realized that his console trick had already drawn the world of Urimer into this whirlpool. After his death in the last cycle, a wave of time rollback swept through this universe, which Naruto's reaction confirmed. If the world of Urimer had not been in a time loop, the Emperor, knowing the truth, would not have used psychics against them. Kizumi no longer hid his deception. Having stumbled upon potential allies, he did not hesitate to tell about it directly, wanting everyone to realize the seriousness of the situation. In the end, everyone who encountered him instantly fell into a new time loop. There are 2 timelines before meeting him, and after, until their paths were cut off, no matter how many times Izumi died. The other world continued on its way, regardless of its cycles. Even if he died a month later, his bloodline would go back a month, while the outside world would quietly move forward. But if these 2 lines touched, the future of that world disappeared until the cause of his death was eliminated. Now the future of the world of Ormer was plunged into emptiness, and how long it would last depended only on how long Uchiha Izumi himself would live. The Emperor undoubtedly also realized this over time, using the Emperor's knowledge and the resources of the multitude. Parallel worlds, their technologies have advanced rapidly. This is especially true of the technology of spacetime protection. If at first there were noticeable traces after the transitions, now they have almost disappeared. It seemed that they were already on the verge of victory. The moment when they could put an end to the persecution of Uchiha Yu forever, 5 cycles. After the 5th death, they reached a point where even Aburami Temeyuki could not feel their footprints in space on the time stream. We did it in a huge laboratory. Uchiha Izumi and his colleagues stood stunned, staring at the screen, where there were no more bursts of transition data. Meanwhile, somewhere in the universe, Temeyuki tried to feel them again. Presence, but found nothing, so it looks like it succeeded. Hurrah! It worked. Finally, we did it. We escaped from the clutches of Chihyu. Ha ha ha. The silence in the laboratory was broken by cheers. People looked at the numbers in front of them, realizing that the fear was finally left behind. Until the spatiotemporal traces were erased, there was no longer any need to freeze in anticipation of the next hunt. Now we'll have time. There are countless parallel worlds. Maybe we can really leave this universe. Uchiha from Yumi looked at the data stream, and for the first time in a long time, relaxation appeared on his face. He saw hope. Hope for survival 5 cycles. Even if there were only 5 of them, each time the interval became shorter, a sign of how well Uchiha adapted to time dilation. 32% in the main world, in the black, silent, and icy heart of darkness. Uchiha calmly felt the currents of power within himself, and his ability to adapt to time dilation had already reached 32%. In the last cycle, this indicator was only 20%. Just a few cycles, and the progress exceeded 1% in each of them. The time has come. A new cycle begins. Spacetime was ruined again, but this time Uchiha felt something strange. A sense of connection between parallel universal disappeared, as if they were cut by some unknown knife. Interesting, he appeared. It looks like they really managed to smooth out the structure of spacetime. Uchiha knew about Izumi and the others' plans from the very beginning, but he never attached any importance to them, and now too. Time has flowed again. I think he has completely lost sight of them. The field is analogous. Somewhere in one of the parallel worlds, Uchiha Izumi smiled. They succeeded. They managed to stop Uchiha 278. It is logical to assume that by this point, Uchiha should have already calculated them from spatiotemporal traces, found and destroyed them. However, this did not happen. They didn't count the slightest presence of Wu Chiyu. What is it? Takam so. They managed to cut off the path of Chiyu. Now we only need to increase, find a way to get into other comprehensive and improved technologies. Sooner or later, they will be able to defeat Wu Chiyu or escape from this world. In countless universes, there are many monsters that violate all laws. Uchiha went to the boundless space, and even with all his strength, he suffered from many. Those who have learned to destroy it exist. Great. We did it. Someone exclaimed with relief, and in the universe Burami Temayuki felt the movement of spacetime. It was calm, stable, and exactly the same as before. He exhaled with an effort, alive. He really survived. Finally, he could consider himself safe. Unlike Uchiha Izumi, Temayuki was developing extremely fast. He was sure that if he was fast enough and gave himself time, he would be able to suck the entire universe dry and defeat a force that surpassed reality itself. But after meeting Uchiha Izumi, there was no time left for that. Now all he has to do is become stronger and find a way to escape from this world. The speed of his development was negligible compared to the speed of Uchiha's development. Who would have thought that such a monster could exist in this world? What is it? He whispered the point of Naruto Uzumaki, glancing at the data, only shook his head. The existence of the Uchiha clan turned his home world into a dump. Moreover, it has dug its claws into another world. He received a personal order from the Emperor to destroy Uchiha or join Uchiha Izumi and his allies, to develop a real technology of inter-universe transition. Then it will be possible to take away from this world and from the shinobi world of the entire empire of mankind. Find a place where they will be safe, having such power. If not for stupid accidents, they could quite well live among most universes. But, alas, they were unlucky with 2 damned worlds at once, where everything was collapsing. These worlds have destroyed all their plans. At least, you can't think about Uchiha right now. The main thing is to focus and find a way to move into a new world as time went on. I think they finally managed to stop Uchiha. Now it looks like they really don't deserve to be afraid of killing him. Is all of this really true? The sun, it flew out. In a boundless, bottomless universe where there was nothing, darkness followed step by step. Disappeared radiation, light, heat, and even movement. Moreover, the solid planets and the dead, cooled stars disappeared, and the substance from which they were created began to evaporate. The darkness watched them. 1 star, 10, 100, 1,000 watched them. It is unknown how many galaxies disappeared under a black canopy. The darkness swallowed them up without a trace, not one universe, but many at once. Boundless darkness spread, penetrating into the very structure of the Milky Way, coloring and absorbing it. Too slow, still too slow. In the cold, dead, empty darkness where not even matter existed, Uchiha slowly opened his eyes. Spacetime was reflected by the shaft of light from his pupils. He saw a distinct trace of spacetime when, too slowly, even without going through the cycle of rebirth again, his ability to adapt to time steadily increased. His eye technique was working continuously, and the overadaptation acquired thanks to Aburami Tamayuki was accelerating. But still too slowly. 1 cycle of rebirth increased efficiency by only 1%. Even now, having passed this milestone, he felt how insignificant his progress was. Without the next rebirth, without direct experience of time, in 24 hours. The increase was only a fraction of 1/100%. Time is too vague, too ephemeral. Yes, power grows with development, but the pace of this growth is unbearably low. To achieve full adaptation, it needed to absorb an unimaginable amount of energy, hundreds of billions of light years, trillions, quintillions, or even more. Only then will his own mass allow him to overcome this limit by force and fixed time. After all, its scale is still too small. A star, a superstar, is an incomprehensible force for mortals. But at the universal level, a star or even a superstar is as insignificant as an atom in a sandy ocean. So small that it is absurd. Yuchi's ability to reverse time allows him to bend spacetime in many universes. How scary it is. And yet, this is what demonstrates how amazing the power of Uchiha is. The ability to adapt to time is a point, but too slow. It's pointless to keep growing at this rate, it's too slow. Killing Uchiha Izumi in itself will bring growth comparable to entire eras. Stop Uchiha yes, Uchiha Izumi and his allies. may have really achieved this. But only on condition that Uchiha Yu stops developing as if he has reached the ceiling. But there is no limit to it. From their point of view, the space-time trace has really disappeared. Even for the former Yu, he was invisible. But this is only from the position of the weak, when Yu's strength reached only a planetary level. He could not tear the fabric of space-time, creating a stable narrow passage. But as soon as he absorbed the star, he was able to do it, and someone, which is what happened. What once seemed to have disappeared and inaccessible, the point of disappearance, this illusion of limited perception, the result of a narrow scale, has been revealed to him again. Now all the once hidden spatiotemporal traces have become clearly visible to the previous Yu. Well, then let's get started. Hehehe. You're so noisy, the point of space-time has gone bust again. Dark as ink, darkness poured into new worlds, opened Uchiha from Yumi and his companions. At that moment, when you had already swallowed almost the entire galaxy, these worlds were blackening right before our eyes. The so-called warp turned out to be just a shadow of the real abyss, an echo that echoed through the dimensions. He was completely destroyed in an instant. The warp demons didn't even have time to realize what was happening. As they were erased into oblivion, Horn roared through the warp. And finally, 279, such a monster has failed. No, it didn't fail. It succeeded. But not completely. It has become stronger? The voice echoed in the void point on the golden throne. The Emperor looked through the warp at the world of shinobi. His gaze settled on the painted darkness, watching everything around. He knew that he could not allow this darkness to enter his world when the warp itself became food for this anomaly, boundless, immortal and indestructible. Some kind of creativity should not have existed. Against the background of Uchiha Yu, the gods of chaos and other horrors of the warp seemed like childish pranks. If Uchiha Yu invaded his world, existence would be doomed. For the first time, the Emperor so fiercely longed for the death of humanity, destroyed life, erased it forever. But even his enormous power couldn't erase you. Even if he threw away the remnants and became a god, he would still be powerless in the face of this living catastrophe. And yet, Uchiha Izumi and his allies, they succeeded. The Emperor clearly understood, they really won, but they only defeated old Yu, the one who was then. They stopped the previous version, not the current one, which is much more powerful, more desperate, and terribly scary. No. This can't be happening. In the world of the Uzumaki tire, Naruto abruptly opened his eyes, amazement froze on his face. He immediately saw Uchiha Izumi. Uchiha Izumi, something terrible has happened. Partner of the police. I have received the divine revelation of the Emperor. Uchiha Yu is coming to us. Reich, Izumi's face came from disbelief. He had only recently allowed himself to breathe a sigh of relief, being sure that he had produced from Yu. What does all this mean, Yuya? Are you going to him? But they isolated him. All spatiotemporal traces have been erased. How can he find them? It's impossible, it shouldn't be like this. Take this, Izumi. These are my memories and the Emperor's memories. Accept them. We did win, but we only stopped at you from the past, not the epoch. For us the traces of spacetime disappeared. And in the eyes of the former Yu too. But for the older, stronger Yu, they still exist. Naruto retold the Emperor's revolution, passing on his memories and Izumi's memories. That's it. Accepting this memory, Izumi said heavily. He hadn't expected that. I barely had enough time to rest, and I thought I got rid of you, as fate turned upside down again. Joy turned out to be a useless illusion, when now everything is clear. Point Uchiha Yu is a developer. He is growing up, the point is an ant, and people support the world in different ways. The point is the pace of Yu's evolution is frightening. Yesterday he was like an ant, and today the observation recursion has already been announced. For an ant, it disappeared, but for a human, it only moved aside, as such the current one. The position of doing they won, but only the last post is Yu, the former, weak, won. The current, terrifying Yu sees this world as the traces that they erased never disappeared, which means you will come to us. Haven't we locked him up forever? Damn it, when will this Yu finally die? That's it, his height is simply monstrous. The Mireshinabi Council of Elders already knew about Uchiha Yu's return. As soon as they observed relief, as soon as they believed that they got rid of it, it turned out that it was self-deception. Uchiha Yu didn't really disappear, but they couldn't get rid of him, as it became clear from Izumi's story, that many cycles of rebirth had passed since then. Cycle after cycle, without a sense of death, but with increasing despair. Please don't give up. We're so close. Real success is very close. See for yourself, we have a hyperspace shuttle, the technology of shielding the spacetimes of Mr. Buramita Mayuki. Even the power of the warp is comparable to the power of another universe. We almost observe freedom. As soon as you find a way to other worlds, you will stop standing still. At that moment, Atsutsuki Ishiki spoke up. His voice awakened a faint spark of hope among those present. No one wanted to live more than he did. Despite his despair, he stubbornly stared at the light, and once he could not imagine what the world forces would have achieved. Old level, the temporary setback, the destruction of the stars in one motion, transition between parallel worlds, even contact with other universes. All of this has long surpassed the power of the Atsutsuki clan. Sometimes he found himself thinking that he was glad that he had joined them in time. I'm glad I earned my place here. He was grateful for his incarnation in the mainstream world. If he hadn't died, then Ishiki wouldn't have had them possible. The former acted out of greed, plotting to steal Yu's power and destroy the world with tires. But he died like a hero before he could reveal his dark intentions, which he, like no one else, believed he could not be. The potential of the tire world. They can escape. They will be able to reset his Yu. Sometimes Ishiki regretted that if he had been a little more careful with Kaguya then, this horror would not have happened at all. And his words dispelled the dark shadow of despair a little. It looks like my time has come again. Please, if Aburami Temayuki could, he would prefer not to write with you. He didn't want to die. He wanted to escape, but he couldn't. Even if he grabbed Izumi and ended up in time, he still wouldn't be able to escape, so he's more than 280. He was also afraid of death. He was afraid of the end. But now the entire shinobi world, he alone could stop at Chihuahua U, even if it is long, even if just for a moment. This is enough to give the world of shinobi a little more time. Each cycle of rebirth was too valuable. They needed to find a way to escape to other worlds while time was still running out before the eternal cycle of rebirth finally ended. To kill Uchiha Yu. Of course, this thought arose. But he knew it was impossible. Yu's strength was growing too fast. They couldn't destroy him anymore. All that remained was to run. Escape from this universe, escape, get rid of you forever. Only then would they have a chance to survive. Only he got the memories from the previous time loop. He might not have been destined to kill Uchiha Yu, but he was sure that he had enough strength to delay him, at least a little. Even now, when Yu was stronger again, he did not lose confidence that he could stop him, at least for a while. All this time, he did not stand still. It absorbed planets, stars, and insanely increased its power. The current Yu is not the same as before, but he himself is not the same as he was then. Now his power is so absolute that he would easily crush his former self. I believe Aburamita Mayuki is dead. He died in a void, icy, lifeless, where there is not even a glimmer of light. Having never met you, he died. His colossal body, bigger than a star, silently hovered in the endless darkness, devoid of even a hint of life. Completely underestimated the horror that Uchiha Yu inspired, and overestimated his own strength. Then the past was in the past. Now everything is different. Yu's strength grew unevenly. She always broke in jerks and jumps. The current Yu absorbed energy equal to the energy of an entire galaxy. As for himself, his own power is only tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of stellar levels. Power is incredible power. That power would have been enough to wipe out his former self. Even the recently strengthened Yu, who swallowed the planet, could not compare with him. But if you compare this scale with the strength of Uchiha Yu, the difference between them will be as huge as between a firefly and a full moon. There are hundreds of billions of stars in the galaxy, and tens of thousands of them, no more than a grain of sand in this ocean. As it turned out, they really succeeded. Yes, they managed to escape from Yu. In the end, it was only after reaching the mass of hundreds of billions of stars that Yu was able to discern a temporary trace in space. This proved that they are really safe. This jump from a size smaller than a star to hundreds of billions is incredible. Not 10, not hundreds, not thousands, but billions of times. For any being, this is incomprehensible, beyond comprehension. The gap is too big. Too terrifying. If it was any other opponent, they would have been safe long ago. After all, most creatures have a limit. They are not capable of growing indefinitely. But their enemy was Uchiha Yu, a being without limits, without a ceiling, a real natural disaster. Looking like a living being, but they are not weak. It's just that Yu is too strong, too monstrous, too incomprehensible for a moment. Yes, that's how they couldn't hold out for a second. You didn't even notice Aburami Tamayuki's presence before he died. He became completely insignificant to him. Once upon a time, Tamayuki could crush you like a bug. Now, however, things went contrary to his plan. On Yu's face, he looked no stronger than an ordinary ant. The Emperor knew that Uchiha Yu's strength was enormous, terrifying. But how big? To what extent has he risen? He couldn't have known. He saw only a reflection of the shinobi world in the warp, which had long been swallowed up by darkness. What could he see there? If he knew what kind of power Yu had achieved, he would certainly have prevented his defeat. Complete defeat. He didn't last a minute. How big is the difference between them? Sitting on the golden throne, the Emperor watched as an irresistible viscous darkness broke into a new world. He understood everything. Aburami Tamayu Kaipal. In general, unable to do anything, so this monstrous force was powerless in the face of Chihyu, like a child before a storm, Uchiha Izumi. And Tamayuki's boars failed. In the parallel world of Uzumaki, Naruto turned to Izumi Uchiha. His voice was calm and infinitely sad. We lost. That's not going to happen. And how fast? How fast? Uchiha Yu, this is a monster? To what heights has he reached? Why did it end so quickly? Hearing Naruto's words, Izumi Uchiha's face darkened. He knew. He understood how powerful Tamayuki was. It was the power of tens, almost hundreds of thousands of stars. Crushing the sun was as easy for him as waving a caramel between his fingers. And yet, even this scale could not stop Yuen for a moment as he recalled the first stage of rebirth. The very moment when Tamayuki led him to destroy you. Back then, the power of dozens of stars made the enemy look like a pathetic bug. You could be crushed with a single thought. And now, after just a few cycles, Tamayuki himself turned into this bug. But one day, using Tamayuki as a shield, he still gained time. And even then, he did not put all his might, that it was dark, like a wave of ink, she in one moment engulfed the entire solar system. This time, death came silently, so that Uchiha Izumi, at least for a while, could resist this darkness before dying. Then it was only her extreme strength, not her heart itself. But now, at the moment of her appearance, as soon as the darkness enveloped him, consciousness disappeared. Everything that was inside was instantly swallowed up, disappeared and dissolved. Death, the point of time stopped, the point of deep darkness retreated like a tide, leaving behind traces of destruction. Everything began to recede, to return, to be reborn, period, but it was all in vain. Darkness never existed. What they called darkness, it was only the breath of the universe, and the natural rhythm that does not have its own essence. Devoid of real power, just the absence of matter, energy. Just a shadow of existence. 281, that is why, after a temporary setback, after the wounds inflicted by the world were healed, the darkness, adapted to the passage of time, could not be preserved. Only a dim shadow of the old darkness remained, useless in itself. The only thing she symbolized now was that Uchiha you had once been. As a result of his maintaining the imprint, a cycle of rebirths occurs. Uchiha you becomes more and more terrible. We need strength and more wisdom. Strength doesn't matter anymore. At the moment, only the highest wisdom is important, which will allow us to abandon this universe. When the cycle of rebirth began again, the Uchiha from Yumi did not turn around. He immediately connected many consciousnesses and established a space-time connection. And now, when the cycle repeats again and again, it is no longer just a memory, but an entity capable of unexpectedly interpreting what is happening, accumulating identification knowledge. At this moment, the highest echelons of the shinobi world gathered in one room. Uchiha Izumi sat in the main seat and said, "Our wisdom has reached its limit. This is our real limit. It looks like it is. There is no other way out, except in one of the parallel worlds we will meet a being with boundless wisdom. However, among all these worlds, only the four of you are a special person." What does special personalities mean? Of course, hired killers, although Naruto Uzumaki is not formally a hired killer. In fact, if you move from the Hokage world to the Wormer universe, isn't that the same as sitting down in the shower? The meeting is over. It's bad, my growth rate is too weak. I absolutely can't keep up with Uchiha you. Previously, I could have held it for a moment, but now I haven't learned how to do it. If the impact is significant, it will simply crush me without leaving a second of resistance. This is a disaster. Therefore, we need to accelerate technological progress. If only we could find a great sage with boundless ideas, someone who alone can raise civilization to unimaginable heights. Someone who can create a time machine in a primitive society of a real god among people. But the wisdom of Saint Judabiram and his associates still has its limits. They are geniuses, but their mind has not reached a level that surpasses the modern level where I can find such a god, yes. Where Uchiha Izumi and Aburami Tamayuki exchanged glances. Both were well aware that the difference between them and Uchiha you had long become insurmountable. My past life has only confirmed this. Once upon a time, Tamayuki could still take care of you's own strength, but now it's impossible now. For him, a collision with you is certain death. Resistance. He does not live for a moment, but the power of the morning had its meaning. In Yu's eyes, Mayuki was no different from an ordinary mortal. Now the only way to preserve wisdom, period, but the path to higher wisdom is almost impossible. The gap between a genius and a simple man is scarier than the gap between a man and a dog. The creation of a hyperspace shuttle, technologies for hiding a space-time trace, and other monstrously complex inventions, is already the limit of their capabilities. At the moment, they are in dire need of technology to travel through the multiverse. But it is incredibly difficult to develop it. A faint hope appeared only thanks to contact with the Orimer universe. Without him, even the thought of moving to other worlds would remain a dream. Perhaps we should turn to the warp for help. Try to negotiate with the gods of chaos. After all, in the face of Uchiha you, a being that even the warp can't defeat, if they don't want to be wiped off the face of the earth. They will have no choice but to cooperate with us. Uchiha you is not to be trifled with. He's not human. He's a monster. A living catastrophe, surpassing all understanding. After much thought, Aburami Tamayuki looked deep into the warp. If his memory did not fail him, then the entities living there, no matter how powerful they were just warp-dependent forms of energy. They are called immortal, but will they be able to survive if the energy sources themselves are absorbed by you? Of course not, that they are afraid of death. Do they know the feeling of fear, if they don't care about complete disappearance, if they live only for pleasure? Then they can only be used as cannon fodder. Soon the Emperor learned about the plans of Uchiha from Yumi and his associates. If Yu is not destroyed, then the destruction of the universe is inevitable. His power is limitless, it grows endlessly. And if he is not stopped, one day he will break out into their world and destroy it without any effort. It's an impossibility, it's an inevitability. In the end, Uchiha Yu's goals and thoughts are completely different. He is not a man, but a monster in human form, a living catastrophe, the personification of destruction. Trying to fix it is like a crowd of fools praying to a falling meteorite for the salvation of their planet. The same senseless stupidity, so Uchiha Yu will certainly turn his eyes to their world. And now the impending death at the hands of the Uchiha clan has become scarier than the warp itself. Scarier even than the danger emanating from chaos. After all, no matter how disgusting the warp was, at least it didn't completely exterminate humanity. From the Camperator looked into the depths of the warp. Sizzla was bubbling and growing there, and he began to establish a connection, as he handed over to the four gods of Var. In the image of the destruction that occurred in the previous cycle of rebirth. These beings, born from the emotions of living beings, seem to embody chaos and darkness. But precisely because they are made up of desires, passions and fears, they are also afraid. They are afraid of absolute nothingness, but they seemed brave only because no force has threatened their existence so far. Tsunami, powerful waves of energy swept through the warp, as if the sea of madness itself was agitated. And then there was silence, dead silence, as if time itself had stopped. And then fear was born in the warp, as endless growth. Immortality, the impossibility of corruption or destruction, self-existence, the purpose of which is to destroy everything. The warp can't stop him. On the contrary, the energy of the warp serves him as food, and even they themselves are created for him as food. For a special place in the world, where only the shadow of Horn could break through the barrier of the warp universe, then. That infinite growth itself is not so scared. The speed of this growth is terrible, the counted moment, he barely reaches the level at which a whole star for him. Only approaches my monster more than.